Hello, everyone. I'm Hiroaki Natsukawa of Kyoto University, and today I'll be talking about visualization meets ancient India, the mapping the structure of Vedic text. And if you attend the last year's workshop, nice to meet you again. And so for those who attend for the first time, I'll give you a brief introduction. And I'm Hiroaki Natsukawa of Kyoto University. And my research area is information visualization and visual analytics. So, and I'm developing the various tools, visualization tools shown here with the biology and neuroscience and ecology researchers, and develop new interactive ways to find a new insight. So I'm not an expert of humanities and historical research, but I like to talk about the analysis of the ancient Indian literature in terms of the data visualization. Okay, and in this talk, first I'm gonna talk about visualization and the visual analytics and introduce you a recent topic of data visualization. That's I call how to find a dinosaur. And then I explain our progress of visualization tool for the analysis of ancient Indian literature. And finally, I'm going to talk about a method and results of mapping the structure of the co-occurrence. Okay. So I'd like to begin with the story of visualization. I explained this last year, but I'd like to go over this year. And to get useful information from the data obtained by the measurement and simulation calculation, it's not enough that you're just having the data. So it's necessary to visualize the data. And it's only when the data is visualized, passed through the human eyes and visual system, and processed and interpreted by the brain, that meaningful information and insight can be acquired. So looking at the data is extremely important, and I'd like to show you a demonstration. So this is a demonstration of data visualization, which is a numerical example from the CHI conference, Computer Human Interface Conference. So this demonstrates that the mean and the deviation, standard deviation and correlation are the same, even though the scatter plots are very different. And sometimes you can find a dinosaur from this data. It's very interesting, right? So by looking at the data itself through the scatter plot, I mean, using the visual representation of scatter plot, we can see the structure of the data, which is not apparent from the statistics alone. And I would like to emphasize here the importance of looking at the data itself. And our motivation is to find something like a dinosaur. I mean, an interesting pattern from the ancient India literature dataset. And so we are dealing with the ancient Indian literature. And as Amano Sensei explained, the goal of this project is examining the origin of literature through the relationship of mantras in the Vedic literature. And they are composed of the religious texts, including mantra, that is secret words. And in this literature, there is a historical classification, such as the schools, and when it was composed, and geographical feature where it was composed. And this table shows a classification of the literature. These are the schools, so Rig Veda, Sam Veda, and Black Yajur Veda. And this row indicates the time division when it's composed. For example, the RV is composed by the Rig Veda at the first time division, and the MS is composed by the Maitrayani. Maitrayani Sanhita is composed by Maitrayani at second time division. So there are 19 literature in this data set, and In this data set, one mantra is often cited in the various texts. For example, this mantra, so it's difficult for me to read, but this is cited in TS 1611, MS 112, and KS 110, and BS 3.16. So we think that this co-occurrence of mantra can be an important cues to get insight about how this literature composed. So our data set is the co-occurrence of mantras in each literature. And so let's see the visualized co-occurrence pattern between the literatures. So what you see here is a co-occurrence pattern between the Maitreya Samhita and the Taittiriya Samhita. And this figure is a scatter plot, and where the horizontal axis represents the sequence of the chapters in the Maitreya Samhita, and the vertical axis represents the sequence of chapter in TS. So the point in the scatter plot are mantras. So you can see the, for example, a certain mantra is cited in this chapter in MS, and this is also cited in the TS in this chapter. So lots of mantras are cited in both MS and TS. So we can see this diagonal pattern. So which means some mantra appears in the early chapter MS are also appeared in the early chapter in TS. And we can understand MS and TS have the same structure from this diagonal pattern. And we can also see the other non-diagonal pattern here and here. So this pattern, such as a diagonal pattern or clustering pattern, may be some dinosaur for us. So the interesting pattern. And the right figure shows the parallel coordinate plot. And I skipped the detail, but in the parallel coordinate plot, we can see the same diagonal pattern as the horizontal line in this plot. And our motivation is to find something like the dinosaur from these data sets. Okay, so to find the pattern and to find the dinosaur is not that simple task. And as shown in the left figure, the dinosaur is hidden in a lot of the data. So in this case, it's still easy, right? But this is also because we are focusing on the dinosaur. And I show you an interesting study reported at the last year's the visualization conference, IEEE's. So this is a study of the visual awareness to the visualization. So please look at the middle figure, and we can see the blue circles and the blue crosses and the green circle. And in this study, they did a subject experiment, and the subjects were asked to focus on the blue crosses and answer in which quadrant they are located. So in the case of middle figure, we can see the blue crosses are located in the first quadrant and the third quadrant. In the right figure, the answer is the second quadrant and fourth quadrant. And in this example of dinosaur, the answer is the same, and we can see the blue crosses in the second quadrant and the fourth quadrant. So in the experiment, a series of images were presented to the participant every second, and they were asked to answer the location of the cross they were focusing on. And when the dinosaur in this figure were randomly appeared in the sequence, so 93% of the subjects did not notice the dinosaur because they are focusing on the blue classes. So this study is an interesting demonstration of the inattentional blindness. So this is a phenomenon that when we focus on the one feature, we do not notice another feature, even if it's obvious. So lesson learned of this study is that the data visualization are not seen in a single glance, and instead require an active process of exploration. And additionally, in a real world setting, we don't know in advance what the dinosaur is. I mean, the dinosaur for the researcher could be those diagonal pattern, or it could be the aggregated patterns. So it's important of active and iterative process of exploration. Okay. So it's important not only to visualize the data, but also to support the iterative process of exploration. So for this purpose, we can add a user interaction in analysis using the interactive visual interfaces, and that facilitates understanding of the data. So this is a visual analytic approach, and we are taking on this approach for the analysis of ancient Indian literature. Okay. So we are developing a tool for visualizing the co-occurrence of mantras. And in addition to the co-occurrence of mantra, there is meta information of literature, such as schools and establishment period and geographical information. And this tool interactively visualize pairwise co-occurrence relationships. And I think the Amano sensei has already explained part of the tool, so we can skip this. And in the last year's workshop, we introduced a graphical tool as shown on the right, and we listed several challenges at that time. So first one is that we need to consider the categorical information of the mantras. So some mantras are related to a certain ritual event. So we need to consider both co-occurrence structure and the ritual event information. So second challenge is that a two-dimensional scalar plot shows only the pairwise relationship, but some mantras are cited by the more than two literatures. So not just one-to-one relationship, we need to analyze features across multiple references. And to improve the tool, we needed to organize the functional requirement and design. So first of all, in order to improve the tool, we discussed with Amano sensei and organized the user goal and analysis task. So we said the user goal is to examine the characteristics and similarities of mantra co-occurrence in different literature to understand the co-occurrence of mantra by considering the ritual information. So for this purpose, we have listed the following analysis tasks. And the first task is to identify the patterns of co-occurrence of mantras. And that is the basic task to find the pattern. And the second one is to present the correspondence with the school and geographical information in the literature. And the previous two had already covered the first and second analysis tasks. And the third one is linking mantra co-occurrence with ritual and chapter information for the interpretation. And now we have the 30 types of ritual event, such as Agnika Yana. Sorry for mispronunciation, but this AG means piling the fire altar. So we are considering tools that make these analysis tasks possible. Okay, so we have already explained this. So let's explain the analysis task 1. So I skipped this, but these views support the first analysis tasks, and the second analysis task is supported by these views. So the selection of literature can be made graphically by selecting the table. Then the geographical information corresponding to the literature is then displayed on the map like this. And in terms of the third analysis tasks, the following filtering function was implemented. And so mantra is described in a certain chapter, and the chapter is linked to a certain ritual event, ritual information listed here. So we added this ritual list, and the checkbox can be used for the ritual filtering. For example, we select the AG. The only mantra related to AG are displayed, like in this screen area. And similarly, if you enter the chapters and sections of the two selected documents in the into the editor, only the specified chapter and selections will be displayed, like in this blue area. So this filtering function supports the third analysis tasks. And here's a quick demonstration of our developing tool. So it's still prototype, but this tool interactively visualize a pairwise co-occurrence relationship among the literature with scatter plots and parallel coordinate plots. And we can select the literature in this table, and we can check the co-occurrence relationship using these plots. And we can check in which chapters and section the mantra appears when hovering the mouse over, like this. And you can also use a list of the left or the editor on the top left to filter the mantras. And this is a ritual filtering. And we can do the chapter filtering using this editor. And the count of the number of mantra is also listed in the table below. Okay, so here are some examples of how the tool is used. So after selecting the Veda and Maitreya Samhita and visualizing the co-occurrence of the mantra, and we focus on the ritual event called YA because a large number of mantra is related to this YA. So YA is Yaja New Wakya. It's difficult to read, but it means verses to invite and worship gods. And in these figures, after filtering, in MS, the mantra related to YA are mainly in chapter 4, but they are distributed over the whole chapter in the Rig Veda. So it's just my personal opinion, but the MS is composed after Rig Veda. So, and MS seems to be organized in terms of the YA information. Okay. So if I have a time, I have 5 minutes left, and I'd like to report briefly about the analysis of co-occurrence features across multiple literatures. And last year, I reported the analysis plan using the hypergraph as shown in the right here, but it's a little abstract. So this time I'm trying a different approach. And mantra can be cited in the multiple literature like this. And now we are focusing on the MS, Maitreya Samhita. And let's say the MS 3.11 is related to the TS 1.6, and MS 1.11 is related to the TS 1.6 and the co-occurrence pattern. It's considered the MS 3.11 and MS 1.11 are closely related, as shown in this figure. On the other hand, MS 4.14 doesn't share co-occurrence, so they are less related to the MS 3.11 and MS 1.11. Okay. So when we focus on the MS, we consider the data as such a large matrix of co-occurrence relations between the MS and the other literature, the KSTS, RV, AVS, AVP. And the matrix towards a number of the mantras that are co-occurring. For example, the MS 414 share mantra with a certain chapter of the KS. And in our data set, the 315 chapters and section having the 2,892 dimensions. So if we map to the high dimensional data set to the 2-dimension using the dimension reduction methods like the PCA or TSNE, we can get the 2-dimensional map of chapter based on the co-occurrence similarity as shown in this figure. So we use TSNE this time for dimension reduction. That is a nonlinear method based on the stochastic neighbor embedding. Okay, so this is a result of mapping 315 chapters and sections information based on the co-occurrence similarities. The point represents the chapter and section of MS. And in this figure, the point of a MS 1.8 is colored in orange. So we can see some clusters here, and this, we can see the aggregated the point. So zooming into the detail, this cluster has the MS 1.3 series, and the other large aggregation can be found here, and points in the MS 1.8 colored in orange are mainly located in the central part, and the point from the MS 1.8.1 to 1.8.4 are in the central group here. And the point from the MS 1.85 to the 1.87 are located in the different groups. So here, the point group in the same cluster is considered having the same co-occurrence pattern. So we can see the mantra co-occurrence structure globally using this visualization. And I have not shown them to anyone yet, including Amano Sensei. So I hope this result will be interesting to some domain experts. Okay. And I'm thinking that this global mapping is useful to interpret the detailed mantra co-occurrence pattern. So for the future work, I'd like to include this mapping, global mapping, into the interactive tool if it's helpful. And for example, from this mapping, that we can see the MS 1.3 has a unique cluster, the co-occurrence patterns compared to others. And in the other views, such as the scalar plot, so we can see how unique it is using the linked function. So it's kind of the overview detail exploration in the visualization. So that is a future work that I'm thinking. And I'd like to conclude my talk. So in this talk, I introduced visualization too, and how visualization technique contributes scientific discovery. So that's why I made the title as Visualization Meets Ancient India, but potentially it's gonna be a tough task for users to look at the co-occurrence pattern for all combination of literature, right? So the relationship between the MS and RV, and the relationship MS and TS and KS, and lots of space to explore, and both globally and locally. So I think it's going to be a really tough. So I think the visualization should meet the other AI. So not only the ancient India, but the artificial intelligence. So actually, this is a hot area in the field of visualization that aims to combine the visualization and artificial intelligence, AI, for the data exploration. So as I talked, the visualization needs the iterative process, and so the interesting pattern. So dinosaur is highly depends on the context. So for example, user give the context and automatically look for patterns of interest using the pattern recognition of AI, leading to more efficient data exploration. And I believe that will facilitate indology study. So I think this is a future direction. So let me summarize my talk. So first, I explained the story about the visualization, and I introduced the progress of visualization 2. And finally, I showed the mapping result and future direction. Okay, so that's the end of my talk. So thank you for your attention.
Yeah, if there are any questions, we have 2 minutes for discussion.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hi, hello.
I am Bhuja from Mumbai University, India. My question, I'm a computer scientist. My question is that with the kind of models and the clusters you showed us from the Vedic text, are they acceptable to the ancient Indian researchers, the Vedic researchers? What is their take on this clustering? Since particularly clustering is a self-organizing or unsupervised kind of learning. So revisiting the clusters and taking their opinion on those clusters or labels would be, have you tried that, or what was that effect, that response to that? That I would like to know.
Thank you for the comment, and I can follow the detail, but in the current situation, I just tried the TSNE mapping. I just only tried the TSNE mapping, and I have not asked the expert of humanities
Since
this results. So.
Is it something like that? To about 3,000 dimensions means those were the points or records, and 315 chapters and sections. What was the ratio? How many were the data points and how many clusters were identified out of that?
Sorry, could you ask the question again?
How many record points? How many record points were there in the data, And how many clusters
Mhm.
were identified out of that?
So the data point is now we have the around 300 data points, and the dimension is around 3,000. So, and using these data, we can get this result. And I think we can find roughly the two clusters, but I use the TSNE, so I think the small cluster is meaningful. So I'm not sure how many, but
Okay,
I
okay,
think, yeah.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you for
Maybe
asking.
we went through the clusters and the closer points.
Mhm.
The ancient Indian researchers, Vedic text researchers, if they study those clusters, then they may give us more input on what is the interpretation or what the cluster means. That's why
So
thank you. Very
this
good.
I think so point group, the clustering group is considered having the same co-occurrence, so mantra co-occurrence pattern. So these the chapters having the same co-occurrence.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
So the time is over. So thank you very much again, Natsukawa-san.
Thank you.
Thank you.